The number one basketball recruit in the class of 2027 just reclassified to 2026, and this could be huge news for the Indiana Hoosiers.
You are Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on the Indiana Hoosiers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, and it is the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. I'm your man, Jacob Goins. I appreciate you being here, making this your first listen or your first watch every single day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day, and now the number one sports podcasting network. So thank you so much for making that so. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Well, we're talking a lot of things on the show today. Basketball and football, where Indiana and Curt Cignetti are well on their way to the Big Ten championship game, but there are several different scenarios on how it can happen. We'll talk about the drama and how that could unfold this final weekend of college football. Plus, and it's an important stretch for Indiana basketball as they head into Thanksgiving week with Kansas State coming in tomorrow night. A couple of big games coming up in the next several weeks as well. But we start with Indiana basketball recruiting, who received some good news, as did the entire college basketball world, when the best player in the country in the 2027 class decided to reclassify. And this is something we have seen quite a bit, right, over the past couple of years. I mean, there are dozens of the nation's best players who have decided, whatever class that they're in, to jump back a class and get to college early, get to the game, get their money, get their development, and try to get to the pros faster, right? You can make money in college, and then you can make even more in the NBA. So this is not a surprise that it's happening. And for this guy in particular, it's not surprising at all. Bruce Branch III. That's right. How awesome is that? That's a basketball name, man. Bruce Branch III. That's right. He is a small forward, originally out of Arizona. He's playing for Prolific Prep down in the state of Florida. He is 190 pounds. He's 6'7" and a 5-star recruit. And again, he was the top ranked player in the class of 2027. There's been a lot of buzz and a lot of talks about him reclassifying, and that became official over the weekend. And the reason I'm talking about him is, yes, Indiana is involved. Indiana has been in contact. Indiana wants to get an official visit, which he has not taken any so far. So keep that in mind. We're still very early in this recruiting process because, again, you thought you had a whole another year to recruit him. And now all of a sudden he's like, hey, by the way, I'm looking to join your team next year. So everybody's got to ramp up the pressure here. But Bruce Branch III is such a talented player, man. You turn on the film and you see why he was ranked so high in the 27 class. He's now officially ranked the number 8 player in the 2026 class, a class that most of the guys have already signed. A lot of them are already in and official, as are the two that Indiana currently has with Prince Alexander, Moody, and Karvala, right? Which has Indiana as about a top 40 class in the country, which is not too bad for new head coach Darian DeVries. But you turn on the film of Bruce Branch, and he's got a little bit of everything in him. He's got the length and the athleticism of a maybe like a Giannis or a Kevin Durant. He's got the rise up and shoot of a Kevin Durant for sure, and the length to help him with that. But he's also got some of the mid-range grittiness of like an Anthony Edwards. Not built the exact same, right? Edwards a little bit shorter and a little bit stockier, but Bruce Branch has the ability to just get in the lane, go through contact, and then rise and fire like a KD type of player. And then you've got his skills with the basketball in his hands. He's a great alley-oop guy. He moves well without the ball, and he uses his length and agility on the defensive end to hold his own. The dude's uber talented, and he is going to make an incredible college basketball player. But, man, you see why Indiana's interested in him and why I think he's interested in Indiana. It's the way that he plays, man. A Prolific Prep down there, and even when he was playing in Arizona, he just gets up and down the floor. As soon as there's a miss or even off of a make, boom, he's gone. He's taken down the floor, and he's looking to get a shot. He's looking to get a score. He's looking to have an opportunity to make an impact on the offensive end. And I think if he continues to develop and put on some more pounds and continue to work on that jump shot, which is really smooth, by the way, a 39% three-point shooter this past season, the dude is legit. You just keep working on it and you're going to be a good player. Now, I always have concerns with a guy like this who is a junior in high school who's trying to graduate early and get to college. I have concerns on just the idea in general, not necessarily Bruce Branch in particular, but what they'll be like and what their play will look like when they get to college, since they're supposed to be a high school senior rather than a high school or rather than a college freshman, right? We see it in football sometimes, and those guys normally don't touch the field a whole lot. Basketball is a different game because, especially with somebody like Branch, he's so highly ranked, right? You want him to be on the floor immediately, as much as possible and as soon as possible, because he's just that good. I think Bruce Branch will be fine, but I do think there will be some growing pains, if you will, on wherever he goes. And since he is so highly ranked, you can imagine that everybody and their brother wants this guy. Okay, he's got offers from pretty much any big program in the country. He's got an offer from Indiana, Louisville, Tennessee, Kansas, Illinois. All those places are after him, including Kentucky and Duke and others, okay? All these places want him, and now the pressure ramps up because you've got to go get this kid right now. It doesn't have to be tomorrow, but sooner rather than later is what you want to do with a guy who just jumped into a 2026 class. And think about this class as a whole for a second, man. We were coming into it with people in the industry talking about the 2026 class being one of the worst they've ever seen. And now here we are, and you've got dude after dude reclassifying, and all of a sudden you bring the best player from the 27 class into the 26 class. And this is the second time it's happened with the 27 guy, the top ranked dude jumping into 26. So it has quickly become a pretty impressive one nonetheless. And Indiana's right there in the mix. Again, he has not taken any visits. He has not gone anywhere. I expect the Hoosiers to get a visit here. And I know there are frustrations. I know that there are some complaints, right, from Indiana fans about, well, we've been here before and we've struck and missed on every one. You're right. But the fact that Indiana's in it at all, I think, is a good start. It's a good sign. And Indiana's class in 26, you thought was already done with the two you had, and you have a chance to add an amazing player to it and make it that much better. We'll see how this process goes. Uphill battle for sure. Lots of big schools and programs going after him. But Indiana, it will be in the mix for Bruce Branch III, who was the #1 player in 27. He's now a top 10 player in 26, and he reclassified over the weekend. And Darian DeVries in Indiana jumped in on it, and we'll see where he ends up going for college next year. All right, coming up here on Locked On Hoosiers, we're going to stick with basketball for now because as we get closer to the end of November and Thanksgiving coming up this week as well, lots of big games coming up on the schedule for Darian DeVries and the Hoosiers, and a very important stretch. We'll find out exactly what this team is made of. More on that coming up next here on Locked On Hoosiers. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by Wayfair. The holiday season is right around the corner, and that means it's time to get your home ready. Whether you need more seating for guests, cozy new linens, or fun serveware for holiday hosting, Wayfair's Black Friday sale is here to help you make your space shine. And the best part, you don't have to wait. Wayfair's Black Friday deals are happening all month long with up to 70% off everything from sofas to spatulas and much, much more. Look, I've told you, I've bought all sorts of things. I bought new sheets the other day on Wayfair. I have a dresser from Wayfair. I have stuff in my closet, some little shelf organizer thing that I got on Wayfair because their prices are incredible. They ship it right to your house and they get it here quick. Wayfair is the place to go for all your holiday needs. So don't miss out on the early Black Friday deals. Head to wayfair.com now to shop Wayfair's Black Friday sale for up to 70% off. That's WAYFAIR.com, wayfair.com. The sale ends on December 7th. All right, welcome back into Locked On Hoosiers. Appreciate you being here, making this your go-to spot for all things Indiana athletics. And make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel if you have not already. And we are growing like crazy, so thank you so much for that. Like our videos, comment your thoughts down below all the time on those. And for everybody listening on the audio side of things, Spotify, Amazon, Apple, you name it, we are there. And thank you so much for listening to Locked On Hoosiers every single day. Indiana basketball. I know it wasn't pretty against Lindenwood, and our guy Brian Smith held down the live show, so thank you to him for that. He'll be stepping in a couple of times this year when I'm unable to go live on Locked On Hoosiers, the YouTube channel, after basketball games for other commitments and things. But I was able to go back and watch the game, okay, and I know it wasn't pretty, but Indiana got the win. You pulled away, and it is what it is. But you got to shake that game off, right? You have to shake off that performance. Learn from it, yes. Improve from it, absolutely. And not repeat it, hopefully. But you have to move on from that 20-point win because you're going into one of your toughest stretches of the season right now. Okay, you've got Kansas State coming in here on Tuesday. That's tomorrow inside of Assembly Hall. You've got Bethune-Cookman on Saturday morning, a team that I've continued to tell you is an NCAA tournament team. You then open up Big Ten play on the road at Minnesota, who is not great, but it's still a road game in the Big Ten to start conference play in the beginning of December, which I don't love, but that's just how the conference is laid out nowadays because there's 1,000 teams in here. Then you take on Louisville, right, in Indianapolis at Gainbridge Fieldhouse on December 6th. You host Penn State for your Big Ten home opener. You then go on the road to Kentucky. And I know that Kentucky squad is not looking good. They looked horrible the other day, actually, against Michigan State. But they're still a solid team. And Mark Pope's a good coach, and they have a ton of talent in Lexington, $22 million worth of it, right? But these 5 games, is that right? No, it's 6 games. Kansas State, Bethune-Cookman, Minnesota, Louisville, Penn State, Kentucky. This is a crucial stretch for Indiana for several reasons, okay? One, it's crucial from a resume building standpoint. If you can get a couple of wins through here against Kansas State, who's a P4 team, who I know they're not great. They're 5-1 on the year. They lost to Nebraska the other day, but by a point. Okay. They do have a win. They have 2 P4 wins, actually. A win over California, or I guess P5 wins. Win over California and a win over Mississippi State, coached by Chris Jans, who's a pretty darn good coach down there in the SEC. So Kansas State is a solid squad. That's a P4 game and a P5. Got to get my mind going from football to basketball. P5 game that you could put on your resume for the NCAA tournament. Again, with Bethune-Cookman, it's a game you're supposed to win, but if you don't show up and play, they absolutely can beat you. Then you hit that 4-game stretch of 2 games in the Big Ten with Minnesota and Penn State, the Louisville game in Gainbridge Fieldhouse, and on the road in Rupp Arena against Kentucky. In this 6-game stretch, from the resume building standpoint, I think you need to go 4-2. I think 4-2 would be acceptable for me. That is beating Kansas State, beating Bethune-Cookman, beating Penn State at home, at least get your home games done. And I'm going to be honest, you should beat Minnesota on the road. I'm sorry. I think you should. I know it's on the road, but that team's 4-2 on the year, bro. They're 4-2. They lost to San Francisco the other day, ladies and gentlemen. They're not that great of a team. They struggle with Chicago State. They struggle with Green Bay. They are just not all that great. You should win that game if you're Indiana on December 3rd when you make a trip to Minnesota. So I think you should win those 3. You should beat Penn State. Then you get 4. If you lose the Louisville and Kentucky games, fine, but you at least won the ones that you're supposed to, and you have an opportunity to pull off an upset in one of those 2. And if you do get one of those wins, then boom, you've got the best win of the season so far for your squad, and you'll be able to look back on that, whether it's the Cardinals or the Cats, doesn't matter. You'll be able to look back on that and show the committee, hey, look at this win that we got back in December. You need to give us credit for that. So from the resume building perspective, this is one of the more crucial stretches that you have. It's also a crucial stretch because we're going to learn a ton about this team and what exactly we have. We have an idea, right? This team loves to shoot. They love to run. Their defense is questionable, but solid, I think. size is an issue. Rebounding is clearly an issue since you let a Lindenwood team, okay? You let a Lindenwood team out rebound you by 4. And I know Brian talked about that on the post game show. That cannot happen in this stretch, or you will lose most of, if not all of these games in this 6-game stretch coming up. But we know at least somewhat of what this team is going to be. But who else is going to step up, right? What other scoring can you get outside of Wilkerson and DeVries? Sam Alexis has been awesome. Can you get consistent play out of Reed Bailey? Can you start to get some of your guys healthy and back on the floor with consistent minutes of Josiah Miles, Nick Dorn? How about Alexa Ristic? Those types of players who you just haven't seen all that much. And what else are you going to get out of somebody like a Trent Sisley, who had 8 points the other night, but he shot the ball terribly? Okay. You have to get dudes to buy in and commit to this team. And you're going to have to get production from more than 1 or 2 players if you want to have a good record in this 6-game stretch. Plain and simple. So we'll learn exactly what we are against solid teams, not so solid teams, and really solid teams. I'm talking national title contenders with Louisville and possibly Kentucky, but that one's on the road inside a Rupp Arena in front of 40,000 fans. Okay. So those two things are just crucial to me on why this stretch is so important. After that, you have Chicago State and Siena, and then you're fully into Big Ten play when the new year hits. And so that's what you want. You're undefeated right now. You're 5-0. You go 4-2 in that stretch. That makes you 9-2. You win those final 2 bye games. That is 11-2 going into conference play. Actually, with 2 of those being conference wins, if you handle Minnesota and Penn State, we'll give you those wins for now. So, man, you couldn't ask for much more, I don't think. In year 1 under Darian DeVries with a brand new team, guys that have never played with each other. All they did was have 3 games in Puerto Rico and fall workouts and practices. And you head into 2026 at 11-2, hopefully with a couple of conference wins and possibly even better if you pull off an upset against Louisville or Kentucky. Man, you look at the preseason schedule and you say, absolutely, we'll take it. You would take it. And you can't be greedy this early in the campaign for Darian DeVries. And so I'm excited for it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think the Big Ten is going to be super, super deep this year. I think it'll be the deepest conference in the country. Nick Arvin and I have locked on Boilermakers talked about that, I think last week, right? How we think the Big Ten will be the best and deepest conference in the country. It was the SEC a year ago. I think it's the Big Ten. You'll have Washington, Maryland, Nebraska to kick it off back when 2026 hits. So I'm ready for Indiana to hit this stretch. And honestly, I think you need it because the Marquette win was good, but Marquette has slowly faded away, right? They're 4-3 as of this recording. I know they play in about 4 or 5 days from now, but they lost to us. They lost to Maryland. They lost to Dayton. I said I wanted to see how that game went and did not go well. So Marquette may not be the season-changing win that we thought it was. Still good, especially with the way that the Hoosiers shot the basketball away from home in the second game of the season. I don't want to discredit the win, but I don't think you're going to get as much love on the national scale for it. That's why you have a chance to handle business in non-con play right now, pick up a couple of early Big Ten wins, and hit 2026 on the ground running. And then you have all the chances in the world to get some resume building wins when you hit Big Ten play. So excited for that, excited for Indiana basketball, but Indiana football's still rolling. And as crazy as it sounds, we're heading into the final regular season week of the year. Think about how crazy that is. And it's Purdue week. We get to hate on the Boilermakers all week long. We just lose a day because it's played on Black Friday rather than on Saturday. We'll talk about that game coming up next. Plus, how Indiana is in the driver's seat to be in the Big Ten championship game. But there are different scenarios that could play out with some results this week. We talk about that coming up next here on the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by Game Time. College football is back, and I could not be more excited. It's here. It ain't just back. It's here. And the tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's really just nothing like it. But let's be real. actually getting tickets can feel like more of a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. Look, I pull up Game Time. I did it the other day, and you can see all your favorite games and just a couple of taps and tickets as low as $25. Okay. If you're wanting to go to Assembly Hall tomorrow night and watch Indiana take on Kansas State in basketball, get on Game Time. If you want to make the trip to West Lafayette, don't know why you would, but if you want to, get on Game Time, see what tickets they have available, and go watch the Hoosiers beat down Purdue. All right. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. All right, final segment here on Locked On Hoosiers. Thank you again so much for making the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcasting network in the country. So thank you so much for doing that. You are the reason Locked On Hoosiers is so successful, and Locked On itself is so successful as well. And flipping from basketball to football today, as this is a big, big week for Indiana Hoosiers and Curt Cignetti as you get ready to play Purdue on Friday night. That's right, the Indiana-Purdue game this season is on Black Friday night in West Lafayette. First time ever that this rivalry has been played on the Friday night and not on that Saturday. I don't love it either, but it is what it is, okay? And unfortunately, this game will definitely be overshadowed for several reasons. One, because Purdue is not all that good. And two, I don't know if you've looked at the Friday slate as of recent, but this Friday is going to be awesome. There are insane college football games going on Friday. A couple of big ones on Saturday. You'll have the game, of course, with Ohio State and with Michigan. I think there's Tennessee Vandy, right, going on in the SEC. The Iron Bowl going to be happening as well. But Indiana-Purdue will play late Friday night in West Lafayette. And it's pretty simple, okay, for Indiana in terms of playing in the Big Ten championship game, because that's what everybody's talking about. But there are certain scenarios that could play out, and several different ones, depending on what Indiana does, what Ohio State does, and what Oregon does, okay? Those three teams and the teams that they are playing have a say. There are 4 teams as of right now going into this final week of the regular season. There are 4 teams that could represent in the Big Ten championship game. It's Ohio State, Indiana, Oregon, and Michigan. With the results we saw this weekend, USC getting blasted because they just didn't belong on the same field as Oregon, they have been eliminated, and we're down to 4. Okay, again, it's the Buckeyes, the Hoosiers, the Ducks, and the Wolverines. For Indiana, it's as simple as it gets. You win, and you're in. That's how it works. If Indiana beats Purdue, you're undefeated in the regular season. You're heading to the Big Ten championship game, whether you're the 1 seed, the 2 seed, the home team, the road team, whatever. All right, you'll figure that out as you go. But for Indiana, you win, and you're heading to Indianapolis for the Big Ten championship game. If you lose, it gets a little more difficult, okay? If you lose to Purdue, you need Ohio State to beat Michigan. That's what has to happen. That's the only way that Indiana can get to the Big Ten championship game if they lose to Purdue, is if Ohio State beats Michigan, because then those are still the 2 top teams. The records are fine. You have the tiebreakers. You have all this mess, but it would still be Ohio State and Indiana. Okay, again, if you win, you're in to the Big Ten championship game. But if you lose, talking about Indiana here, if we lose, we have to cheer for Ohio State in the game on Saturday morning. Now, Indiana wins, beats Purdue like we expect them to do. You could still play a combination of Ohio State, Oregon, or Michigan. All right. So let's say Indiana beats Purdue and Ohio State beats Michigan. Boom. There you go. It's the Buckeyes and the Hoosiers. Doesn't matter. If Michigan were to beat Ohio State, again, from here on out, we're talking Indiana beats Purdue on Friday night. If Michigan beats Ohio State, and Oregon beats Washington, it's the Oregon Ducks who would get in and play the Indiana Hoosiers in the Big Ten championship game. If Michigan were to beat Ohio State and Washington were to beat Oregon, Michigan would get in to the Big Ten championship game. So that's how all that works, okay? Buckeyes and Hoosiers, you win and you're in. For Ohio State, if they lose, then it gets interesting. It comes down to Oregon, and then it would be Michigan. So that's the pecking order. Kind of confusing, but at the end of the day, you're watching 3 games this weekend. You're watching Indiana, Purdue on Friday. You're watching Ohio State and Michigan, and you're watching Oregon and Washington. And off the top of my head, I looked at it before I hit record, and I cannot remember when the Oregon-Washington game is. So let me pull that up as we're on the way out here. I want to say it's on Friday, but I could be wrong on that. Oh, it's not. Fantastic. Here, okay. So Indiana, Purdue is on Friday night. Ohio State, Michigan's the big noon kickoff. Oregon, Washington's the 3:30 game on CBS. So we'll have all the answers. Boom, boom, and then boom. Friday night, Saturday morning, and by Saturday evening, we will know exactly who is in and out of the Big Ten championship game. Now, my thoughts on this, you know what they are. I think it is hit or miss on whether Indiana should or should not want to be in the Big Ten championship or participate in that, but more on that at a later time. We won't do that on today's episode, but that just gives you an idea of what this week holds. And it's more than that, though, right? I think it's more than that. For Indiana, I think it's capping off the best regular season you've ever had in program history. Honestly, one of the better regular seasons we've seen in college football history. I mean, teams don't go undefeated all that often, okay? It's about that for me. It's about beating your rival. It's about doing it on the road. It's about continuing to get better, staying healthy, my goodness, and all the above things. But that's where we stand heading into this final week of the regular season. And Indiana still has a ton to play for, plus your college football playoff bid, where you end up. Is it a top 4 seed? Do you have to host? Do you have to try? Like, there's all sorts of different situations here. And I fully expect Indiana and Curt Cignetti to treat this as any other game, a nameless, faceless opponent, get in, handle business, and get out, get to the Big Ten title game, and be a top 4 seed in the college football playoff. That's what we want, and I think that's what Indiana's going to aim for this week. All right, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers, man. Ton of fun and a ton of content coming for you here the rest of the week. We'll talk tomorrow about Indiana versus Kansas State. Fun crossover episode coming tomorrow with the host of Locked On Kansas State. So we'll get to that show tomorrow. Plus, we're also going to have some fun talking about the other games around college football, a big week in the Big Ten. We'll have our buddy Zach Seiko on with us this week to talk the big storylines, coaching carousel heating up even more, and what needs to happen in the final games of the regular season. And of course, you know we're going to do a crossover with our guy Nick Arvin of Locked On Boilermakers on Friday to preview Indiana and Purdue. We will have episodes every day this week, even on Thanksgiving. So if you need to get away and watch or listen to something for 25, 30 minutes while you're finishing up the turkey or something, we're going to have content for you on Thursday as well, okay? But we are back tomorrow with a fun crossover episode for Indiana and Kansas State basketball. So until then, Hoosier fans, stay safe, and I'll talk to you later.